Up until 4 years ago, I used to be fully integrated into the Windows and Android ecosystem, but then I bought this MacBook right here, and then an iPhone, and then iPads, then AirPods, Apple Mouse, Apple Trackpad, Apple TV, AirTags, and I fully committed to the Apple ecosystem. And honestly, in terms of productivity, it is one of the best things I've done. Good for productivity, not so good for my wallet. But everything here, everything in the kind of Apple ecosystem just works so seamlessly together. The devices, they all talk to each other, they automatically streamlining my daily workflows in ways I never expected. In this video, I'll go through 10 devices in the Apple ecosystem, which devices I think are worth it and which I think are probably not. Starting with the MacBook Pro 14. When I bought this MacBook about 4 years ago, I didn't think for a second that I'd then go ahead and buy almost every other Apple products out there. I'm becoming fully entrenched into the Apple ecosystem. What actually happened was in 2020, I had a Dell XPS 13, a very competent laptop. I had no complaints, except that year, Apple released their M1 chip in the new MacBook. Usually with new laptop releases every year, they either get a small power upgrade or a small battery upgrade, but the M1 changed everything, and suddenly you had a MacBook M1 that had a huge upgrade in performance and a huge upgrade in battery. And I was looking to upgrade my Dell XPS, so the MacBook Pro 14 M1, i.e. this laptop here, was an obvious choice, and I'm so glad I bought it. Usually laptops slow down the more you use it, but this MacBook Pro 14, even though I've used it every single day for 4 years, it still runs as fast and as snappy as the day I bought it. I never had that longevity in a laptop before. Not to mention, the display is incredibly bright, as you can maybe see. It's very vivid, it's super powerful, the keyboard is very satisfying to type on, and the speakers are insanely good. I remember the first week I bought it and I was watching Netflix in bed, and I genuinely thought the speakers had surround sound because the sound wasn't coming from the speakers themselves. It was kind of coming from all around, a very kind of immersive surround sound. It's so good, in fact, that I have a portable B&O A1 second gen speaker. I'll just go and get it. These are about $240, so not cheap, but I barely use this anymore because the speakers on the laptop are not quite as good as this, but they are very, very close. My one gripe though with this laptop, and this bothers me probably more than it should, and you can probably see this from the camera, the keypad wears down very quickly, so you can see the keypad looks greasy. It's not greasy, it's just the keys have worn down, which kind of makes the laptop look a bit old. I feel like Apple have built this laptop like a tank. Everything just feels premium, but they seem to have fallen short with the keypad. Other than that though, the MacBook Pro is incredible. My MacBook is essentially the command center of my Apple ecosystem. Every other device I own, my iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, all converge here. When I'm deep in work mode, I can instantly grab photos from my iPhone without even having to pick up my phone. I can use my iPad as a second screen with just one click, and even copy something on my iPhone and paste it directly on my MacBook. And I use that feature on a daily basis. This kind of seamless connection isn't just convenience, it's a massive time saver. For example, when I'm preparing for a video and I need to add some B-roll video clips for my iPhone, I don't have to email them or use a third-party app to send them to myself. They're just there in my photo app ready to use. Or I can just AirDrop the files between my Apple devices within seconds. Or when I start drafting an email on my iPhone during my commute, I can instantly pick up where I left off on my MacBook when I get to my desk. It's these kind of little time-saving things that add up throughout the day, keeping me in my workflow instead of kind of fighting with technology. So the MacBook doesn't just work well by itself, it makes every other Apple device more useful too. The Apple Mouse is my newest addition to the whole Apple ecosystem. This Apple Mouse is also possibly the worst reviewed Apple product on this list, but I ignored all the negative comments about the port being at the bottom here of the mouse so you can use it and charge it at the same time, or the poor ergonomics design. I don't mind that. Or that it hasn't seen any significant upgrades since 2009. I did what a lot of consumers did. I was like, it's an Apple product, it will probably be quite good. It was not good. I can get over the design. I can get over that it's not very ergonomic. I can get over over that there's a port at the bottom. But for me, it's just not accurate at all. When I want to click on a small icon where I need accuracy, like clicking the X button on a Chrome tab, it takes me a split second longer to click it every single time. And even when I turn on pointer acceleration in the mouse settings, it's still nowhere near as accurate as my old Logitech Anywhere 3 mouse. So this is the Logitech Anywhere 3 mouse. This is the Magic Mouse. One of the few times where I would prefer another manufacturer over an Apple product, because the Logitech beats it hands down in terms of pretty much every area: ergonomics, usability, and price. Out of the 10 Apple products that I'm reviewing, it's the Apple mouse that is by far the biggest disappointment. And honestly, I'm not sure why Apple don't just give it a proper refresh. It has been 16 years after all. Anyway, after the disappointment of the Magic Mouse, I then bought the Apple Trackpad. The Apple Trackpad, straight away, much better than the Apple mouse, at least in my opinion. If you like using an Apple MacBook trackpad, then you probably like this trackpad too. But is it actually worth the around $129 that it goes for? The glass surface provides silky smooth resistance, making every gesture very precise. The entire surface is clickable, no more aiming for specific buttons. Battery life, it lasts for at least a month, and gestures transform your workflow. Pinch to zoom, 3-finger swipe between apps, 4-finger swipe for app overview. These become second nature within days and dramatically speed up your workflow, or at least they do with my workflow. The ergonomic benefits are substantial. After switching from at least this mouse to this trackpad, I do get less to no wrist pain. The trackpad's 4-degree angle positions your wrist naturally, and you'll instinctively switch between finger combinations, preventing repetitive strain injuries. The downside: precision for single pixel tasks can be challenging. The glass surface does collect, particularly on the matte black version, collects fingerprints, and it demands more desk space than a mouse. The price is relatively steep. So I work primarily in coffee shops with just my MacBook and a trackpad. And you might think, well, why carry around an extra trackpad when I have a trackpad right here? The reason is I like to have my arm stretched out like here. The trackpad worthwhile because my arm is at a lot more natural position. So now moving on to the iPhone. After buying my first Apple device, the MacBook Pro, I was so impressed. I upgraded my Android phone, which at the time was a Huawei P30, to an iPhone 13 Pro, which I still have and use every single day. So my MacBook is the workhorse, but it's my iPhone that is like having kind of a daily assistant that keeps me on track of my workflow for that day. The two productivity apps that I use more than any other on my phone: Apple Reminders, which is basically my task list. I've been using task lists on my phone every single day for more than 10 years now. The reason being, procrastination can often happen in the time period where you're thinking, what should I do next? In that split second, you're distracted, you're on YouTube, you're browsing Facebook, whatever. But with a task list, you know exactly what you need to do. It also makes you a more reliable person, because when you're automating your workflow with systems, instead of having to remember what tasks you need to do, our memory is not very reliable. We naturally forget things. So by jotting down your tasks on a task list makes you more productive, but also just more reliable, and it makes life easier. The second productivity app that I use the most is the Apple Calendar. Again, it's about systemizing your daily workflow. So I often have anywhere from 2 to 6 meetings a day, and there's no way that I'd be able to remember all of them. So I have those events or appointments on my calendar, and I usually have a reminder 15 minutes before that meeting or appointment, so I don't have to remember a single thing. My alarm will just alert me when I need to be at the next meeting. This app is also a widget on my phone, so when I scroll right, it's right there. And other widgets I have on that screen where I scroll down is a habit tracker called Habitify, to keep track of what exercises I did that day, because I'm currently cross-training for a triathlon, and it's important I keep tabs on what type of workout I've done that week. What makes these apps on the iPhone even more powerful is how seamlessly they sync across all my Apple devices. So when I add a task to Reminders on my iPhone, it instantly appears on my MacBook, so I can manage my to-do list no matter which device I'm using. And this is a feature I use regularly when I'm working on my MacBook and a call comes in on my phone. I can answer it right from my laptop without reaching for my phone, or if I'm on a call using my AirPods and I need to switch from my iPhone to my MacBook for a video meeting, they automatically switch over, no manually disconnecting and reconnecting my AirPods. Another feature I love actually is that you can really easily use your iPhone as your MacBook webcam, and because it's using the rear camera on your iPhone, it's probably going to be a lot better or a lot superior quality, let's say, than whatever webcam you might be using. Going even further, there's a feature called desk view. So when you position your iPhone correctly, it can simultaneously show your face and a top-down view of your desk. You can use these during meetings when you need to sketch something out or show physical products. It's this kind of seamless integration which means I spend less time managing my devices and more time actually getting things done. Even notifications are synchronized perfectly, so once I dismiss a notification on my iPhone, it disappears from all the devices, so I'm not constantly clearing the same alerts. It's these little time savers that do add up throughout the day, making just everything flow more smoothly. So after getting the MacBook and the iPhone, I thought the iPad mini would be this perfect middle ground device that would help streamline my daily workflow even further. But I'll be completely honest with you, it's actually one of my least used Apple devices and probably something I wouldn't necessarily buy again. Not because it's a bad device. The iPad mini is incredibly powerful, it's really well designed and extremely useful for the right person. But for me personally, I just don't really have enough tasks where it really excels. I do use the iPad mini when I'm sitting with clients or in a team discussion. Pulling out a laptop can feel like putting up a barrier between you and the other person during meetings. But the iPad mini with the Apple Pencil is perfect for taking quick notes, like having a notepad, but with all the benefits of digital, and I can quickly jot down ideas using apps like Notes or Good Notes. And thanks to iCloud, those notes instantly sync to my MacBook and my iPhone. And of course, if someone shares a document during the meeting, I can pull it up on my iPad mini while keeping my notes open, making it easy to reference information while writing. If I do need to share my notes after the meeting, AirDrop is just incredible. I think AirDrop is one of the best inventions because as a content creator, I'm forever sending images, photos from my iPad to my phone to my laptop. The second way I use my iPad mini is as a second screen. So you can see here I'm filming with my DSLR and I'm using this iPad mini as a second screen because the screen here is way better than the screen on my DSLR. So what I do is I connect my iPad mini to my Sony a7C using Sony's Imaging Edge mobile app, and it shows me my DSLR screen with a much bigger screen in more detail with more accurate colors. My only gripe with this, and you can probably see this here, it is very, very, very laggy. Literally about 5 seconds lag. So every time I am filming, I've got the camera here, but I actually have my iPad mini here so I can see myself and make sure that I'm in the middle of the shot and I've not accidentally veered off to the left or to the right. But here's the thing, outside of meetings and a second screen, when I'm filming videos, I find myself naturally gravitating towards either my MacBook for serious work or my iPhone for quick tasks. The iPad mini kind of sits in this middle ground where it's not quite as portable as my phone and not quite as powerful as my laptop. So while it integrates really nicely with my other Apple devices, I can also use it as a second screen for my MacBook with Sidecar, hand off tasks seamlessly between devices and access all my files through iCloud. I found that I just don't reach for it often enough to justify its place in my workflow. It's a fantastic device if you have specific use cases for it. In my experience, it's more of a nice to have than a must have in the Apple ecosystem. So I bought an iPad Pro around 2020 and I was so impressed. The screen quality is absolutely stunning. The Liquid Retina XDR display makes everything from documents to videos look incredibly crisp and vibrant. The speakers are exceptional too, delivering rich room-filling sound that transforms it into a really good entertainment device. And when it comes to Apple ecosystem integrations, I mean, it's seamless. You can drag files between the iPad and the MacBook Pro using universal control. You can use it as a second screen with Sidecar, instantly AirDrop files to any of your other Apple devices. The iPad Pro is an amazing entertainment device. There's no better device, in my opinion, for watching Netflix or YouTube, but that is where the problem lies. For me personally, I don't particularly need an entertainment device in my my ecosystem. I'm quite happy just using my iPhone 13 Pro, which is now like 3 or 4 years old, as my entertainment device. And I found myself gravitating either to my iPhone for quick YouTube videos or my MacBook for serious work. The iPad Pro just kind of became a little bit redundant, similar to the iPad mini, but even more redundant than my iPad mini. So in the first 6 months of getting the iPad Pro back in 2020, I was using it every single day. But after 6 months, I started very gradually using it less and less. This isn't to say that the iPad Pro isn't right for you if you're an artist, a designer, or someone who specifically needs a touch-based interface with Apple Pencil support. If you like an entertainment device, it could be perfect for your needs, but in my experience, focusing on fewer devices that serve clear, distinct purposes has worked better for my productivity. So I did end up giving my iPad Pro away for exactly that reason. Sometimes less really is more when it comes to creating an efficient workflow. You know that moment when you're deep in the zone, you're crushing your work, and then your phone lights up. And even though you try to resist, you just have to check your phone. Next thing you know, you're 30 minutes deep into Instagram Reels. We've all been there, but here's the thing. My Apple Watch has completely changed this pattern, and I wish I had gotten one of these years ago. So let me tell you why. I held off buying an Apple Watch for over a year, thinking it would be just another distraction, another screen constantly demanding my attention, but I couldn't have been more wrong. It's actually become my kind of secret weapon, if you like, for staying focused and getting more done. And here's what made me realize this. The first week I had my watch, I noticed something strange. My screen time on my iPhone dropped quite significantly, and at first I didn't really think much about it. But it turns out it's because I wasn't pulling out my phone nearly as much. And that's the real magic of the Apple Watch. See, I've got the cellular model, which means I can leave my phone behind and still stay connected to what matters. So for example, when I'm taking my dog for a walk or heading to a coffee shop for a focused work session, or even just going for a run, I don't need to bring my phone. I still get important calls, messages, but this is the crucial thing. There's no social media temptation. It's kind of like having a productivity filter on your wrist. The way that it integrates with other Apple devices, honestly, really clever. I'm of course deep in the Apple ecosystem, MacBook, iPhone, I've got everything. So when I'm working on my MacBook and I get a message, I can quickly glance at my wrist instead of picking up my phone, because in my opinion, the phone, let's say the most dangerous procrastination device. So if I'm listening to a podcast on my AirPods while working, I can control it right from my watch without breaking focus. And here's what really changed the game for me is the focus modes. So when I'm in deep work mode, my watch automatically adjusts its settings, no notifications except for true emergencies, a simplified watch face that only shows the time and my focus duration, and it syncs these settings across all my devices. No more random notifications popping off. This surprisingly does help with productivity. Now let's move to sleep tracking. So I used to think I was getting enough sleep. Spoiler, I wasn't. My watch showed me that on days when I got less than 7 hours of sleep, my productivity decreased slightly in the afternoon, particularly after lunch. And I can see patterns where if I get less sleep, then I'm more likely to feel tired the next day. Maybe it sounds obvious, but for me, I needed to see the actual evidence on my watch before I actually took note of that. The Apple Watch can also double as a second screen when filming or taking pictures with your iPhone. So for me, this is useful when I'm shooting B-roll or those kind of tricky shots where I need to be in front of the camera but still want to make sure everything's perfectly in frame. All you need to do is open your iPhone camera app and your watch automatically becomes a viewfinder. You can see exactly what your phone is seeing right on your wrist. Even better, you can control the camera right from your wrist as well. So you can start and stop recording, you can switch between front and back cameras, and even set a timer. And I've also customized my watch face to be super minimal. I don't know whether you can see that, probably not. Just the essential info is needed. So I've got the battery, I've got the dates, I've got the time, I've got my activity rings, no clutter, no distractions, and it's a very minimal approach, and it has helped me by being more intentional with my time throughout the day. And the beauty of all of this is that it's not about having another gadget, it's about having the right tool that helps you stay connected to what matters while filtering out the noise. That's important, filtering out the noise. It's like having a personal productivity assistant that helps you stay focused while you can kind of manage your time better and keep those exercises, workouts, healthy habits going every day. I don't have a pair of AirPods Max with me here for very good reason. You'll find out why very shortly, but the active noise cancellation on the AirPods Max is on another level entirely. If you need to get into deep focus mode, these kind of create an almost eerily quiet environment. Coffee shop noise, office chatter, even the sound of an airplane engine, they all just disappear. It's like stepping into your own private workspace, no matter where you are. The sound quality is exceptional, which matters more for productivity than you might think. And when you're listening to music while working for hours, having clear, well-balanced audio reduces listening fatigue. You can work longer without that mental drain you sometimes get from lower quality headphones. They integrate incredibly well with the Apple ecosystem. Of course they do. They'll automatically switch between your iPhone, iPad, and MacBook, or basically any Apple device that you're listening to music or watching videos. You can easily take a call on your iPhone, then jump back to a video on your MacBook. No need to mess about with Bluetooth settings. The digital crown, similar to what's on the Apple Watch right here, gives you precise control over volume and playback, which is actually really satisfying to use. My favorite feature, and I use this so often, is audio sharing. So audio sharing works with AirPods Max, but also with AirPods Pros. So if you're on a long flight and want to watch something with your partner or your friend, you can connect two pairs of AirPods to one iPhone or to one iPad. So you just need to bring a second pair of AirPods close to your device, tap share audio, and you're both set to enjoy the same movie or show. Each person can control their own volume independently, and the audio stays perfectly in sync. It's way better than those old school kind of headphone splitters we used to use. The Max's battery life is impressive, around 20 hours with active noise cancellation on, and they have this clever feature where they'll automatically preserve battery life when you put them down, thanks to built-in sensors that detect when you're not being worn. The spatial audio features really shines on these. When you're watching a video on your iPad or MacBook, it creates this incredibly immersive experience where the sound feels like it's coming from your screen, even when you turn your head to the left or the right. It's not just good for movies, it actually does help maintain focus during video calls because it makes the video call feel a lot more like a natural conversation. But here's the thing, and it's a big one, they're not exactly pocket friendly. The AirPods Max are substantial headphones, and while they come with a case, it's just not the most practical design. So these aren't something you can just slip in your pocket like AirPods Pros can. That's actually the main reasons why I don't use the big Apple headphones, but I use my AirPods Pros for daily use. So when I'm moving between meetings or heading to a coffee shop, I want something ultra portable. The AirPods Pros are exactly that. Most people think of AirPods as just another pair of wireless earbuds for music and calls, but they're actually, in my opinion, they're one of the most important productivity tools. My AirPods are always in my pocket. They're so compact. I honestly forget they're there until I need them, and I need them a lot. We're talking about 4 hours of daily use, split between workouts and focused work sessions. But here's what's interesting. When most people think about productivity tools, they think about productivity apps, they think about computers or even smartwatches, but AirPods rarely make that list. I would argue they absolutely deserve a spot for helping me, at least, be so much more productive during the day. For me, it's all about active noise cancellation. I'm not just talking about blocking out a bit of background noise. I'm talking about creating your own productivity bubble. I often work from coffee shops, and usually if something happens that would normally derail my focus, maybe the coffee shop would start blasting music that's way too loud, or a group of excited kids would run in. Before my AirPods, that meant either packing up and leaving or trying to power through the distraction. Now, I just keep working like I'm in my own private office because the ANC, or the active noise cancellation, in the AirPods block out maybe 80-90% of external noises. But here's where it gets interesting. The way AirPods integrate with the Apple ecosystem is incredible. I can be working on my MacBook and then I get a call. My AirPods automatically know to connect to my iPhone. Then when I'm done with the call and go back to watching a video on my MacBook, they seamlessly switch back. No button pressing, no opening Bluetooth settings. It just works. Another example is if I'm deep in work mode on my MacBook and I need to take a quick break to watch, let's say a video on my iPhone, my AirPods follow me, they know which device I'm using and they switch automatically. And this might sound like a small thing, but when you're switching between devices like 10 or 20 times a day, it does add up. It does save you a lot of time and frustration. And then there's the live listen feature that I only discovered actually very recently. So you can actually use your AirPods to listen through your iPhone's microphone. So think about how powerful this is for students who might struggle to hear in large lecture halls. They can place their iPhone near the professor at the front of the stadium or the theatre and listen clearly through their AirPods from anywhere in the room. The transparency mode is another feature that's surprisingly useful for productivity. Sometimes you need to be aware of your surroundings. Maybe you're waiting for a delivery while working, or you need to hear when your colleague comes by with a question. I use transparency mode most often when I'm running on the street, and obviously it's important that I'm still listening to what's going on around me so I do not get run over. And then there's the spatial audio. So when I'm deep in work mode, having music that feels like it's coming from all around me, not just being pumped directly into my ears, reduces listening fatigue. I can work longer without that drained feeling you sometimes get from wearing headphones all day. Out of every device on this list, the AirPods Pro are probably my favorite Apple device. Now let's move on to the HomePod. So while everyone focuses on the sound quality of the HomePods, which is pretty good, I feel like the magic happens when you see how HomePods works with other Apple devices. For example, let's say I'm working on my MacBook and I want to, again, quickly set a reminder about a deadline. Instead of breaking my flow to type it out, I just say, hey, remind me about the client presentation tomorrow at 9 a.m. And my HomePod picks it up and boom, the reminder shows up instantly across all devices. No need to even touch my phone or watch. And with AirPlay, I can instantly beam whatever I'm listening to from my iPhone or MacBook to the HomePods. And if you have multiple HomePods throughout the house, you can start a podcast on your iPhone when you're getting ready for work in the morning and then seamlessly transfer it to different HomePods as you move through the house. And when I sit down at a desk, for example, one quick tap sends the audio to my office HomePod and I never miss a beat. The intercom feature is also quite interesting. For example, family in another room can send quick intercom messages throughout their Apple devices that play on my HomePod. It's much less disruptive than someone barging in or shouting across the house. You can also set different automations through the Home app that trigger based on time or location. And since my lights in my apartment all have Philips Hue light bulbs and my Philips Hue app is connected to my Apple Home app, with one command to Siri to the HomePod, I can change the color of all my apartment lights, which is pretty cool. So right now I'm in filming mode, but I can go to red, I can go to futuristic, I can go to NFT, or I can go to boring old filming as I was earlier. The handoff feature with my iPhone is particularly impressive. So when I'm listening to something on the HomePod and need to head out, I just bring my iPhone close to the HomePod and the audio transfers automatically. Again, it's these small conveniences that add up to just make the whole Apple ecosystem experience better. A quick note on the HomePod sound quality, really is good, especially if you pair two of them in stereo. The bass is deep, but it never overpowers the mids and highs. What really impressed me is how they automatically adjust their sound based on where they're placed in the room. You put them near a wall in a corner and they'll tune themselves to prevent that kind of muddy, boomy sound you get with other speakers. And at higher volume, there's very little, if any, distortion. Even when I'm playing bass heavy tracks, the sound stays crystal clear. So overall, I do really like the Apple HomePod speakers. Next are the AirTags. So I've been using AirTags for about 3 years and I do like them, but they definitely have restrictions. So I use one of the AirTags on my dog's collar actually, because sometimes when I walk him in the dog park just outside my apartment, there are small holes in the bushes and a few times he has run away, and as soon as he does, I can open up my Find My app and then I press play sound so I can hear where he is, and then I can click directions so I can see which direction he is, and I essentially just follow the arrow until I find him. Now the big caveat when using an AirTag with pets is, firstly, do make sure the AirTag is secure and it's not going to fall out or fall off, because if your pet finds it, if they play with it, if they eat it, obviously having a pet eating something with a battery is not a good thing, so keep that in mind. Secondly, when using the directions feature to locate where the AirTag is, sometimes it doesn't pick up a strong signal. This usually happens when the AirTag is in an area with few or no people around, because AirTags, they don't have GPS. They rely on a network of nearby Apple devices to relay their information. So if your pet wanders into a remote area or somewhere where people don't typically go with their iPhones, the AirTag won't be able to communicate its location back to you. I also have other AirTags hidden on both my bikes just in case they get stolen. At least I might be able to track them down, but it really is just a last resort. Although I do like the AirTags, they do come with quite some big limitations. So when it comes to the Apple ecosystem, they're of course nowhere near as essential as something like a MacBook or an iPhone or AirPods. Apple TV 4K. So I've been using the Apple TV for about a year, maybe a year and a half now. The integration with the other Apple devices is, as you'd expect, seamless. You can instantly AirPlay content from your iPhone, your iPad, or your MacBook to your TV. Your Apple Photos can show up as your screensaver, which is actually pretty cool. And if you're wearing AirPods, you can quickly connect them to watch something without disturbing anyone else in the room. Perfect for late night viewing. The Siri remote is definitely premium. It's probably my favorite thing about the Apple TV, to be honest with you. It's milled from aluminium and has dissatisfying weight to it, and the touch sensitive ClickPad makes scrolling through content really smooth, and you can use Siri to search for shows or control your smart home devices. It's leagues ahead of very plasticky remotes you get with most streaming devices. This is a very typical Android remote. I mean, it's night and day. And also a lot more compact, which I do like. But here's the thing, I primarily use a Apple TV, and honestly, the differences aren't as dramatic as you might think. Yes, the Apple TV's interface is more polished and aesthetically pleasing, I guess. Everything looks a bit more premium, animations are a bit smoother, and the whole experience feels just that slightly bit more refined. But when it comes to actual functionality, watching Netflix, Disney Plus, or YouTube, the experience is pretty similar. One nice feature is how it integrates with the Apple Home app, so you can control your smart home devices right from your TV. And if you have HomePods, you can use them as TV speakers, which is pretty neat. These aren't exactly game-changing features for most people. If you're deep in the Apple ecosystem and want that extra layer of kind of polished integration, if you like, the Apple TV 4K does make sense. But if you're happy with your smart TV's built-in interface or another streaming device, I don't think you're missing out on anything too revolutionary. In a nutshell, the Apple ecosystem is, in my opinion, absolutely 100% worth all the hype. And to learn about how Apple devices work together with Apple apps, you can watch this video on Apple's Genius 3 app productivity system using Apple Notes, reminders, and calendars, and how they all work together. It's actually really very clever. Or you can check out this video where I go into more detail about the 5 main Apple devices I use on a daily basis.